living things need energy to breathe, move and grow. They get this energy from the food they consume. The food source could be a plant or an animal. Matter and energy are passed on from one organism to another, and this makes all living things connected to each other. This relationship between organisms based on the food they eat is called the food chain. To put it simply, a food chain shows who is eating who. A food chain always starts with plants. Plants are called producers in the food chain. All animals in the food chain are consumers. A food chain ends with a predator. Predators are at the top of the food chain. We also need to learn about food webs or food cycles. A food web represents the interconnection of many food chains. Let's look at a graphical representation of a food web. The arrows indicate the feeding pathways and the direction that food energy travels in each food chain. Each member in a food web is important to other members. Removal of an organism from the food chain will affect survival of other organisms. It's very important to maintain intact nature's food cycle, since all of us are part of it. Let us now look at each organism in the food web. We can learn their life cycle, anatomy and the special features that help them catch their prey, protect themselves from their predators and adapt to the environment in which they live. As an example, let us look at the common frog. The life cycle of a frog begins with a fertilized egg. A female frog lays a bunch of eggs enclosed in a jelly-like substance, which keep the eggs intact. Fertilization takes place outside the body of the female frog by a process called external fertilization. Not all of the eggs are going to become fully grown frogs. Many of these eggs will get destroyed due to exposure to wind and rainfall. Others will get eaten by other animals, fishes and birds. Only the luckiest ones survive and start their journey. There are different stages in the life cycle of a frog. The fertilized egg develops into a tadpole and hatch after about 7 to 9 days. In the beginning, a tadpole will eat the egg yolk that is still left in its gut. A baby tadpole has gills, a tail, and a mouth. After about 7 days of tadpole development, the tadpole will begin to swim around on its own and eat algae from the top of the water. About 4 weeks into the tadpole life cycle, it will begin to grow teeth and skin over the gills. It learns to be social and swim in schools like fish. 6 to 9 weeks into development, tadpoles begin to grow longer and develop a small head and legs. At the end of 9 weeks, the tadpole will look more like a frog than a fish, but with a long tail. At this stage it starts to eat things like tiny insects. From 9 to about 12 weeks, frog metamorphosis starts to really take shape. The tadpole that looks like a tiny frog but with a long tail, called a froglet, will lose most of its tail, grow a frog tongue, and start to really look like a baby frog. The whole frog life cycle is completed after about 16 weeks when the frog becomes an adult. Let us now see the anatomy of the adult frog. The frog, not surprisingly, has a similar anatomy to a human, such as body structure, common organ functions, vertebrate nervous systems, circulatory, digestive, and respiratory systems.